Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Marcus Aurelius, and this is Dwarf Fortress Anvilquested. And we are about to get started. We are where we left off. Well, a little work has got done. I did dig the main staircase down a little bit just to see where the soil ends and the rock begins. But now that that has been done, I've been able to plan out pretty much the entire fortress. So I'd like to share that with you. As you can see, I have decided to dig straight down into the ground. I'm not going to go sideways into one of these plateaus. And you might wonder, Marcus, why did you build your staircase here and not down here by the wagon or someplace more in the middle of the map? And let me explain that one to you. Let's zoom out just a little bit till we can get the whole map in view. Okay, so this map, if you'll recall from the appendix episode, is 3 squares by 3 squares. So it's a total of 9 squares. One thing I've noticed is that geographical features tend to follow the lines of the squares. For example, if you look at the 2 plateaus, one to the southwest and one to the southeast, you can kind of get a feel for the horizontal squares, right? The one plateau kind of ends in the middle and the other plateau kind of begins over to the right. Also, if you look at them, you could see kind of the vertical squares. You see the top right and kind of the top middle doesn't have trees. That's the mountain biome. Whereas the plateau in the bottom left, that's kind of the southwestern square. Where the river exits the field to the west, that is possibly the southern boundary of the top square. Or the top 3 squares, that is. So that's all well and good, but what does that mean? Well, I've found that when you dig down and you make it to the cavern layer, the open space of the cavern tends to be located in the middle of squares. So if you want an opportunity to dig down all the way to the bottom, all the way to the magma, with as little as possible disturbing of the cavern layer, it's always a good idea to build your staircase near where the squares meet up, or especially near the 4 corners of 4 different squares. So I've kind of eyeballed it, and I think that my staircase is roughly where this square, this square, this square, and this square meet up. So that hopefully will allow me to get to the magma relatively quickly without disturbing the cavern layers, or minimally disturbing the cavern layers. And the reason why that's important is because one thing you need to understand about this game is that for a dwarf to move 1 square left, right, north, south, it takes as much time for the dwarf to do that as it takes for the dwarf to move 1 Z level up or 1 Z level down. So what that means is, if you build a staircase down, let's say 20 floors, you hit the cavern layer, but it's right in the middle of the open cavern ceiling, so you have to move maybe 10 or 15 squares to one direction or another, and then start your mine shaft down again. That's the equivalent of 10 to 15 extra floors down. So it already takes the doors forever to get to the bottom. Now it's taking them even longer. So my goal in every campaign that I play on this game is to arrange it such that I only have 1 long vertical staircase, no matter what. And that means even if I do break into the ceiling of a cavern, I will simply build the stairs down through it, build walls around it, and hope that I'm able to do all that before the local fauna notices me and decides to make snacks out of my dwarves. So I'm hoping for the best here. I'm hoping I can make it down without too much trouble to the magma, though I have no intention of doing that just now. From here, on the main world screen, or I should say the surface Z level, you'll notice that I'm already designating a bunch of trees around my entrance to be cut down for wood, and I've had my farmer, Daz, start harvesting the plants here. Normally, I don't really care too much about the plants on the surface. I generally don't do any kind of outdoor farming. I only do indoor farming. However, this particular embark is very full of interesting things. We have prickleberries, we have onions, I saw some quinoa somewhere, blackberries, more prickleberries, strawberries. So we have a lot of peas. We have a lot of really interesting food items. So rhubarb. So I'm definitely considering doing some outdoor farming. However, I would do it in a smart way. I mean, you don't want your outdoor farms to be targeted and your farmers. So let's go down, first of all, to the first floor down. This is our main farming floor. Now you'll notice here I have my underground farm. And the way I normally do this is I make it a 10 by 10 room, and I do 3 by 3 farm plots. And the space in between them, I put seeds. I don't allow barrels in the seed stockpiles, just bags, because sometimes they put so many seeds in bags in barrels that your farmers, for one reason or another, can't get access to the seeds. Down here is where all my turkeys will go. I'll have the young and male turkeys here, I'll assign female turkeys to each of these little corridors with a nest box and a door. The door is so if I want the turkey to be able to have babies, want the eggs to hatch, and I don't want the dwarves to take the eggs and eat them or cook them, the door will lock the dwarves out so that can happen. Up here, I have where I'm gonna, as soon as I break into the cavern layer, have all of my migrant dwarves, animals that are pets that need to graze. I will have them in here so that they can graze. I might have to expand this, and there's room for that. And then finally, down here is where I'm going to store all of my dogs and eventually train them to be war dogs. So about outdoor farming, I've left this whole area open because I have an idea of basically channeling out a 10 by 10 square area here. And what that will do is it will open up a room here, 10 by 10, but it will be considered outdoor since I channeled down. And so it'll be able to grow outdoor plants. And then just like here, I'll do a 3 by 3 farm plots with outdoor seeds. And then you could, if you wanted to, roof it by planting floors over it. But I find that to be kind of unrealistic because how are you going to grow outdoor plants if no light gets down there? So my solution to that is actually you can build a 10 by 10 drawbridge. And so normally I'll leave it open so the sunlight filters down and gets to my plants and it makes sense. And then if we're ever invaded by something dangerous, a flying creature perhaps, because I will have walls around all this, I will just simply pull the lever, close the drawbridge, and all of a sudden the outdoor farm is completely protected. So that's my plan for that. And of course I've left plenty of expansion room for whatever my needs are. Next, we have the main storage and trading floor. Now, for storage, I like to have 10 by 10 squares. And you'll notice I haven't designated everything for digging out. Some of the areas are blocked off. That's because they are expansion areas. But you'll notice I have these little rooms here. The purpose for this is at the beginning, right now, this is going to be my only floor. This is the first floor that's going to be dug out, and this is where my dwarves are going to live and do everything, basically, for the first few months. So I need little rooms for workshops, a mason's workshop, a mechanic's workshop, and these are going to go in here. But then eventually, when I've built other floors and we have more permanent workshop spaces, I'm going to dig these walls out and turn these into 10 by 10 storage rooms. I'm also going to put my kitchens in here, but I haven't determined yet which square I'm going to do that in. Then you move up here and you have my trade depot is going to go here. So this here is going to be a jeweler's workshop, and that is going to be for encrusting finished goods, which are going to go here. This is the finished goods storage. It's going to be encrusting the finished goods with the gems. So I'm going to have cut gems here, and so the dwarf is going to take the cut gem, take the finished goods, encrust it, put it back, and that'll increase the worth of our trade goods. Now this is channeled out here. This is going to be a drawbridge, and That's going to protect us and protect whatever traders are in residence if enemies get inside the trade corridor. These little crenellations here are for statues. Now you'll notice if you go back up, here's the route in, and then if you go up again, you'll notice nothing. Well, let me talk to you a little bit about trading. I find trading in this game kind of silly because the merchants will show up and like literally seconds after they show up, an enemy army will invade, and invariably the merchants will run around. They won't even attempt to come into your fortress. They'll just run around and get themselves killed. And this hurts your diplomatic standing with whatever nation the merchants come from, unless it's the dwarves, in which case no one cares. But I don't like that. I find that's kind of realistic, or unrealistic, I should say. In the real world, if a merchant knows that an area they're going to trade at there's an army on the way, and believe me, everyone knows when there's an army on the way. People talk. They just won't show up. They'd never get caught unaware like that. So to kind of make up for that, what I do is I create a separate entrance into my fort just for merchants. And the way I do that is I allow a 3-wide path, actually it's 5 wide, all the way to my trade depot from only one part of the edge of the screen. And so what I do here though is you can't build walls or dig or build floors or ceilings within about 5 squares of the edge. So how would I go about protecting this? Well, once that hallway is done, I'll channel this out, I'll build a wall around it like this, and the way to cover this up is you can build bridges. So you build a drawbridge here, you build a drawbridge here, and then you attach them to a lever, you pull the lever, and they raise. So instead of 2 drawbridges, you now have 2 basically walls, and then you go up a Z level and you create another drawbridge on top, which instead of lifting up, you actually lead down. So you then have 2 walls and a roof. And so the merchants will always appear from here, and they will be completely protected all the way to your trade depot. Now this is not completely foolproof because enemies, when they invade, can spawn from any edge of the map. So it is possible, though numerically less likely, that they will spawn right here and they will have an easy access into my fortress, hence the need for the drawbridge down underneath. Also, if for whatever reason my other entrances to my fort are closed, then the enemies will spawn at the only place where they can get in. So the whole invasion would happen right here. So it's obviously in my best interest to leave other entrances open at all times so that that will not happen. So then we're back to this floor. So that's how that's going to work. So eventually trade depot, we're going to encrust the goods and boom. And we're going to store stuff like furniture and food and whatnot here. Eventually, after a year or whatnot, this will all be gone and you'll basically just see 4 10x10s, and this can be expanded to the east, to the west, or to the south as necessary. In terms of up here, again, I can expand this wherever I need as necessary. Like say I want a tree farm. I want an indoor tree farm once we breach the caverns and we can start having cave trees grow in the soil. However, I don't know how that's going to work in this new version because the trees are multi-level. So I don't know if you just create a single level space if trees will actually grow in it. I've yet to experience that, so we'll see. Next floor down is my workshop floor. I have a very specific workshop layout. I have the workshop itself, which I then connect to a large storage area, and then I also connect the hallway to the storage area. And what I do is, let's say this is a mason's workshop. Well, then this will be a stone stockpile, which will I'll only put a certain type of stone. I'm pretty OCD when it comes to my masonry. I don't like it when my dwarves have different kinds of cabinets. So I'll pick whichever stone is most prevalent. I believe it's chert right now. And I will only allow chert here, and I will tell this mason's workshop, let's say, to only accept chert. So that means all the furniture and everything will be made out of chert. I generally have 2 mason's workshops. One is where I basically restrict it to only proficient or better masons, and that's the one that makes the furniture, the doors, and then I have one that's on full-time making blocks, and that I allow any mason who is not proficient, so less than proficient or lower. That's a good way to train up people, but it's also a good way to get blocks really fast, which you need in this game because now that there's climbing, a rough stone wall can be easily climbed, but a wall made out of stone blocks is very difficult to climb. Plus, the blocks get you the most bang for your buck in terms of the stone, because one boulder will make multiple blocks. This, of course, also can be expanded out to the left or to the right. It cannot be expanded north or south, well, without a lot of difficulty and a lot of dwarf pathing, but that's okay. I potentially will discover floors further beneath that I can expand more workshops if I should ever need to, though I doubt that I will. You'll see this over here. You'll understand that in just a moment. So down below this floor, we have the military floor. This is going to be, it's also the administration floor. So this is going to be the bookkeeper's office. This is going to be where I put all my levers in these little alcoves in the wall. This is going to be storage for armor and weapons. This is going to be 2 barracks for melee dwarves to train. This is my Marks dwarf training area and the barracks for the Marks dwarves. And when I say barracks, I just have them train there. I do not have them sleep in the barracks. Then this is where I'm going to store all the ammo, and they're going to be the main entrance to my fortress. And you'll notice I have a lot of pillars here. I'm going to put doors on either end. I'm going to put dogs here so that any thieves and whatnot can be seen. You'll notice I have channeled out areas here. When you shoot bolts into targets and they hit the walls, they disappear. They're gone forever. However, if you miss the target and the bolt hits an area where there's a hole underneath it, it'll fall down into that hole and the bolt will be restored. So every once in a while you can come back down here 1Z level below and you can recover bolts. So it's a good way basically not to waste bolts. So this, you'll see it's a little staircase here. So I have to explain kind of my situation to you. And let me do that by, first of all, going back up to the surface. So we're going to have a main entrance to our fort that's going to be roughly here. And enemies and friends and diplomats and migrants and everybody's going to come into the fort through here. They'll come down here. They'll go down here. They'll go down here. They're still going down until finally they reach this hallway. And from here, I'm going to put a bunch of traps here. Not a lot. I'm not going to overdo it. But I'm going to put a few cage traps. And the reason for that is I'm going to want to capture some enemies alive to be used as training for my melee dwarves. I run militarily a very ranged centric force, so my first squads are going to be Marks dwarves, but eventually I want to train up melee dwarves, and I don't use danger rooms. So the way I do that is I capture goblins and I have an arena further down where I will train my melee dwarves to be effective. So I'm going to have a drawbridge here, and I'm going to have a drawbridge here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow the enemies in, I'm going to pull this drawbridge, and then they're going to kind of wonder what to do and look lost, and then I'm going to pull this drawbridge. So basically they are trapped in this room, which is going to have a channel all the way around it. Then up here, I'm going to have wide open space. So this room is going to be 2 levels high, and I'm going to smooth out all of these walls and put fortifications in them. And this is going to be where my Marks dwarves stand, and they're basically going to be in a shooting gallery. They're going to be able to shoot down at all the enemies who are milling about here. And they should be able to kill many enemies like that without being harmed themselves, unless the goblins bring some master bowmen, in which case it'll be difficult for us, but that's the way this game is. It can't be completely foolproof at all times. And so the Marks dwarves get to that area by here, so they can pick up their ammo on the way, and if they need more ammo, they can come down and get it, and then go back up. So this is kind of the killing zone. It's hard to visualize yet, because you can only channel 1 level at a time, so I'm going to channel out this level, and then I'm going to go down, and so this is going to look like a wide open square like this, just with the channel around it. And now this can be expanded again. If I need to, I can turn this into a hallway and put more barracks if I need to do that, and I can put my armor storage or my weapon storage somewhere else. And, well, wow, goodness, I have talked for quite a long time, and our time is up. So I will continue this discussion on how my fortress is laid out in the next episode. So once again, I'm Marcus Aurelius, Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.